But let me come back specifically to 1279 as the black letters on white pages that may go into the red books and what it means. It is not a codification of Roe v. Wade. It is not a codification of the existing laws as they are applied in the state of Colorado based on federal statute, state statute, federal case law, and state case law. It is dramatically broader. It's much more broad. It is sweeping in its nature. It expands significantly the threat to an egg, embryo, fetus, baby, child. It changes the bar in some significant ways. In Roe v. Wade, the United States Supreme Court found that the right to abortion is, quoting from the decision, not absolute and must be balanced against the government's interest in protecting women's health and protecting prenatal life. Roe v. Wade says find a balance. The bill is brought in anticipation of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but it does not hold the line at what Roe v. Wade calls for. It extends dramatically the rights to abortion, the access and likelihood of abortion, and the language around abortion. We must be clear. We brought 16 amendments as an effort to converse on what the ultimate black words on white pages in red books might look like. We dealt with a number of things that are important. I would say places where 1279 is too extreme to meet the appetite of the Colorado public. It's pretty clear that it is open to interpretation as to whether the rights and requirements of parental notification will exist if 1279 passes. Since it's unsure, it is a problem. Since it's unsure, it's highly likely that there will be circumstances where parents will not know what's going on in their most precious element of their life, their child's life, in the moment when that child probably needs those parents most. That's a change that comes with 1279, and there were amendments, 2 different amendments offered on this one, to say, we just want to be clear. The bill does not intend to remove the right to parental notification. We talked about the people's right, broadly, the people's right to redress of government, that the fact that it is reserved to them the right to petition, to remove a part of or all of a law unless there are specific health and safety reasons. I believe that the thumb on the scale for that must always be on behalf of the people. The people have the right to do that which they will do unless there is a clear pressing need. I do not believe the evidentiary bar of clear pressing need has been met, and that we should have put a petition clause on this particular bill instead of the safety clause that it has. We ran amendments that would have made it really clear that this bill does not say you lose your First Amendment rights if you want to talk about abortion. As drafted, the bill causes doubt around that. If you oppose abortion, do you lose your right as a public official, as someone in government in some place, to speak clearly? That's a challenge. One of the biggest parts of this bill that I struggle with is the concept of how you shift the public conversation from a perspective that is firmly held to a different perspective, and you do it over time by virtue of the language you use. You have all heard, because this is a chamber of debaters, you have all heard, he who controls, she who controls the terms of debate wins the debate. this bill dramatically changes the language around abortion. It drops in multiple euphemisms in places where abortion should be used. Words like reproductive health care are used instead. We offered amendments to clean that up. The biggest challenge inside the bill is language that eliminates, takes away, makes clear that it is the perspective of this bill and the perspective of the law, should it become law, that the egg, embryo, fetus, baby, child does not have independent or derivative rights. They're gone.
Senator Lundeen, I assume you want to go into your next 10 minutes?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I would like to go to my next 45 minutes. Thank you.
Please proceed.
There was possibly, and I had several constituents reach out to me via text late last night, early this morning, frankly, to say, I listened to the debate and my heart caught in my throat when a definition of what abortion is, the D and C, the D and E, it was described. This is part of the making the debate and discussion, the understanding of what's actually happening real. Those constituents said, oh my gosh. I knew conceptually, but as that description of what it is happened and was read as part of the debate, my heart caught in my throat, and it was challenging, heartbreaking. Potentially the most challenging amendment that was offered that did not get accepted for me was a really simple amendment that said the bill purports to be anticipation of and in response to a circumstance that may happen in the future, and that's the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We want to do this in case. So the amendment that said simply, okay, if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, then the bill becomes active. It's kind of a safety clause. Was not accepted onto the bill. And I think the prime impulse, the prime impetus, the prime call for the bill, as in anticipation of Roe v. Wade being rejected, kind of debases the entire discussion and argument. There were a number of other amendments of all sorts of potential change, 16 in all that were offered. I would have preferred that some of them get in. I think it would have been better for the broader conversation that we all seek to have, and that is how to tune things up, how to find the best that we can get to as iron sharpens iron in very difficult perspectives or different perspectives. But for me, the biggest challenge in this whole thing, and it's where I began the debate, and I'll end the debate, my portion of the debate on this, is the challenge that there are two, I believe, as part of my understanding, as part of my belief in the fact pattern, and as part of my faith, that there are two individuals we need to think about. And I always want to be very, very clear. And I want to use all the proper languages. I want to acknowledge all the proper perspectives. But for me, it's really clear that it's a young woman by definition, because it's a woman of childbearing age. And some women have children really late in life, but generally, it's a young woman. And it's an egg, embryo, fetus, baby, child that we are also contemplating. And the pursuit of a balance, a societal striving to get at the best possible result we can get to with regard to that, to help the young woman in crisis, to provide support for the young woman in crisis, and to acknowledge that there's a second precious being as well to be considered. I began my comments yesterday by calling out the fact that we frequently refer to former leaders, either political or spiritual or philosophical leaders, in trying to find ourselves grounded in who we are. And one of those phrases that we come back to occasionally is, a society is judged by how it treats the weakest among itself. Hubert Humphrey said, and this is important, what Humphrey had to say, because this is exactly what we're intersecting with. Government, the moral test of government, is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life. Now, from my perspective, that dawn begins at conception. The children, says Humphrey, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, those who are in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. Mahatma Gandhi said, a nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. From my faith tradition, the psalmist is clear. Psalm 139, for you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb, in Psalm 22:9. Yet you brought me, the acknowledgement of a sentient being, you brought me out of the womb. Me, I existed before delivery. You made me trust in you even at my mother's breast. And Khalil Gibran, your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. So I conclude with a resolute no vote in the most challenging bill of my legislative career. And hope springs eternal. Not that I'm going to change a vote, but that we might change our hearts and seek every element we can. I mentioned in passing at the well last night, and I want to come back to the place where I have engaged in this particular issue, not through government, but through society. It's through a ministry, is with the Life Network. And when I was not in politics and had a little more cash flow, I was a little more generous in what I could provide and support to this group. Their statement is valuing life, transforming lives. And they work in crisis pregnancies. And they take all comers under all circumstances and allow for all perspectives and all potential outcomes, frankly, because they love the individual who shows up on their doorstep. The mission of Life Network, I'm reading from their website, I'd encourage you to go out and look at it, is to cultivate a community that values life, and then again, as an acknowledgement of my faith tradition, through the love of Christ. And there are several points of how they achieve this. Presenting the gospel of Jesus Christ, providing life-affirming alternatives to abortion, promoting sexual integrity and healthy decisions, empowering parents to be healthy and hopeful, giving hope and healing in post-abortion cases, and engaging the community to advance life. And so, as we set up the bright lines of law, which is our job, I call us also to reach outside the realms of government and find other places where we can intersect with, engage with, speak love and encouragement and support to all individuals who might be struggling with what's called a crisis pregnancy, and to the extent we possibly can, to the protection of innocent life still in its mother's womb. Colleagues, I appreciate you all. I appreciate the fact your perspectives are not necessarily my perspectives. And I will be a resolute and firm no vote, but seek to, with you, do everything I possibly can in my role as a legislator and in my call on my life as a human being called to love God and love others, to help in any way I can, and to work with you to help us all find ways how we can help those in struggling, in need, in difficulty in society. Thank you, Mr. President.